In today's digital economy, you'd be entirely forgiven for assuming the physical storefront is dead. Running a traditional brick-and-mortar business is brutal. Retailers constantly fight massive overhead costs like commercial rent, utilities, and daily payroll just to keep the lights on. There are successful physical outliers in Canada like Dollarama or Lululemon, but they share one massive advantage. They sell physical products that consumers actually need to buy in person. Then, you have a company like EB Games. They sell video games to a core demographic that actively prefers to make purchases entirely online through digital platforms like the PlayStation Network and Steam. The long-running internet stereotype that gamers refuse to touch grass comes to mind here. They can instantly buy and download the biggest industry releases from the comfort of their couch, completely eliminating any practical reason to ever visit a suburban shopping mall. Because of this massive shift in consumer behavior, conventional business logic dictates that a physical video game store is an obsolete model. This financial reality was publicly reinforced when GameStop executives in the United States began aggressively shutting down hundreds of their locations to stop their operational bleeding. So, when GameStop announced they were looking to offload all 185 of their remaining Canadian locations in early 2025, the writing was on the wall. Nobody was riding to the rescue, not for a chain of shopping or video game stores in the middle of a digital revolution. But eventually, someone actually did. The story begins in the 1970s. Down in the United States, Electronics Boutique built its early foundation selling digital watches and calculators to suburban mall shoppers. But when the home console market exploded in the 1990s, the executive team ruthlessly pivoted. They gutted their original inventory and shifted the entire business directly into video games and PC software.
Ma'am, is Final Fantasy in your used game section?
Used games? You really do like fantasy, don't you?
Toy stores don't take games seriously. You gotta talk to gamers.
Final Fantasy breaks the role-playing mold, and you can save some cash if you buy it pre-owned.
Cool.
By the mid-1990s, the company pushed north across the border and completely took over the Canadian suburban mall scene. Long before massive big box retailers even understood how to properly stock a video game, Electronics Boutique was already locked into every major province. For an entire generation of Canadian kids, this was the absolute primary and often the only place to actually buy interactive media. By 2002, the company realized their formal corporate name didn't exactly match their core customer base. They completely ditched the stuffy Electronics Boutique title and swapped it for the faster, highly recognizable acronym EB Games. Under this new banner, the stores leaned into an intentionally chaotic layout. Walking into an EB Games meant stepping into a tiny, aggressively lit room packed with inventory from the floor to the ceiling. The company plastered every single inch of wall space with physical game cases, and they choked the center aisles with wire racks stuffed full of thick strategy guides and massive PC big boxes. Demo kiosks blasted the latest game trailers on a constant deafening loop, and the company built a highly energetic and completely overwhelming retail environment tailored exclusively to the gaming demographic.
Entertainment mixed with education, edutainment.
Okay.
You've got tablets that are focused on kids.
But getting gamers through the door with that chaotic energy was only the first step. The real financial engine keeping the lights on was the massive secondary market. The company's core business model relied heavily on the physical exchange of goods through their highly lucrative trade-in program.
Why not trade in your used games for cash? Trade DVD movies for cash. And the same for music CDs. Trade for sweet piles of cash. It's easy, it's quick, and not likely to give you hepatitis B. EB Games and Electronics Boutique. Trade for cash. Trade for games.
Consumers would purchase a new game at full price, play it to completion, and then return the physical disc or cartridge in exchange for store credit. The store would then sell that used copy to another customer at a slightly reduced price, securing a significantly higher profit margin. This secondary market generated immense revenue, and it absolutely required a physical retail location for the transaction to take place. The physical stores also served a highly specific social function for the customer base, especially during an era before broadband internet allowed for the digital preloading of large files. Back then, the only way to play a highly anticipated game on the exact day of its release was to attend a physical midnight launch event. Customers would line up outside the mall for hours before the doors opened, spending their time discussing hardware specifications and software reviews with the retail staff and other local customers. The EB Games brand became culturally synonymous with these community events, largely because they hired employees who possessed extensive technical knowledge about the products. This reliable expertise created a retail environment where consumers actively trusted staff recommendations, generating high customer retention rates and highly consistent foot traffic. That kind of massive, guaranteed foot traffic inevitably put a huge target on their back. In 2005, GameStop, their absolute largest competitor at the time, swallowed electronics boutique whole. This acquisition completely eliminated GameStop's primary rival and gave the American parent company an absolute monopoly over physical game distribution. Down in the United States, the new executives wasted zero time. They aggressively ripped down the electronics boutique signs and rebranded every single location to GameStop. But they made a completely different calculation for their international markets. Internal market research proved the EB Games brand held massive cultural weight in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. For the next 15 years, the Canadian stores operated quietly under the GameStop corporate umbrella while keeping their iconic red and white signs over the door. The internal computers and inventory systems shifted to match the American parent company, but the actual customer experience stayed exactly the same. Eventually, that long period of retail stability slammed into a wall of technological progress. Better internet infrastructure fundamentally destroyed the need for physical media. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo built digital storefronts directly into their consoles, and publishers realized they could completely eliminate manufacturing and shipping costs by selling downloads directly to the player. The physical disc went from being a mandatory purchase to an optional plastic souvenir. To stop the financial bleeding, American GameStop executives panicked. They started ripping out actual games to dedicate massive chunks of shelf space to pop culture merchandise, branded t-shirts, and walls of plastic vinyl figures, flooding stores with cheap collectibles. This kept the American locations afloat, but forcing that exact same strategy north of the border exposed a massive structural flaw in the corporate playbook. Running a massive retail chain in Canada is financially brutal, with the economic realities being completely different in comparison to the American market. You have a significantly smaller population spread out over a massively larger geographic area. Transporting bulky physical goods from a centralized warehouse in Ontario across the prairies and over the Rocky Mountains costs an absolute fortune. Add in higher minimum wage laws and crushing commercial real estate taxes, and you get a highly unforgiving business environment where profit margins are razor thin. Canadians are highly familiar with watching massive American corporations fail to understand this reality. The most infamous example is the catastrophic launch and immediate collapse of Target Canada in 2015. We've actually produced a full video breaking down that exact disaster, so check the card link in the corner of this video to watch that next. Anyways, this history of high-profile retail collapses directly informed the precarious position of GameStop Canada during the late 2010s and early 2020s. The parent company in the United States was already struggling heavily with the global consumer transition to digital media, watching their primary software revenue steadily decline year after year. The financial struggle became a matter of global public record during the unprecedented stock market events of 2021. A sudden and highly coordinated surge of retail buying caused GameStop's share price to rise dramatically as investors and short sellers were forced to react to rapidly increasing prices. This short squeeze significantly increased volatility and drew global attention to the company, and during this period, investor Ryan Cohen joined the board and later became chairman. Armed with a massive financial war chest, the new management team initiated a series of aggressive global restructuring plans, and their primary corporate goal was to strictly standardize the entire business operation, seeking to create a single, highly unified brand identity across the entire world. In 2021, the corporation officially announced that all Canadian EB Games locations would be rebranded as GameStop Canada, ending decades of localized retail history. The reaction from the Canadian public was highly negative, immediate, and incredibly vocal. Consumers viewed the forced name change as an unnecessary erasure of their specific cultural history, dictated by executives who had never actually shopped in the Canadian stores. The general sentiment was that the American executives completely misunderstood the Canadian market, heavily prioritizing corporate uniformity over actual customer loyalty. However, all the meme stock cash in the world couldn't fix a fundamentally broken physical retail model. By 2024, GameStop's global balance sheet showed severe financial strain, forcing the parent company to mercilessly slash their international operations. The worldwide consumer shift toward digital downloads was heavily accelerating. Desperately stuffing stores full of pop culture merchandise simply couldn't generate enough revenue to cover the massive overhead. The company aggressively pulled the plug on Europe, entirely liquidating physical locations across Ireland, Switzerland, and Austria. With Europe wiped off the map, the executive team locked their sights on assessing their remaining global divisions. By early 2025, financial reports and retail news publications began indicating that GameStop was actively preparing to abandon the Canadian market entirely. The public statements surrounding this potential exit were incredibly hostile, and in a statement regarding the potential sale of the Canadian division, GameStop Chief Executive Officer Ryan Cohen openly expressed his clear disdain for the Canadian business environment. This highly public rhetoric instantly created a toxic environment for the frontline employees staffing those 185 Canadian locations. A full corporate exit guaranteed thousands of immediate job losses. Store managers and retail clerks were forced to show up to work every day, wondering if the doors would be permanently padlocked by the end of their shift. Beyond the immediate staff, the ripple effect threatened the outright death of dedicated video game retail in the country. Local suppliers and mid-sized vendors who relied heavily on the physical chain for distribution stared down catastrophic financial hits. The entire Canadian gaming industry was paralyzed, waiting to see if American leadership would simply liquidate the entire division or if a buyer would step in to take the operations off their hands. That buyer surfaced in May 2025. Stéphane Tétrault, a prominent French-Canadian entrepreneur, officially acquired the entire Canadian division of GameStop. Tétrault bought deep, established roots in physical manufacturing and distribution. He's the founder of Imports Dragon, a massive toy distribution network handling complex logistics for major global brands. More importantly for the retail market, he co-owns McFarlane Toys, a heavy hitter in the premium action figure and pop culture collectibles industry. Tétrault purchased Electronics Boutique Canada directly from GameStop Global Holdings for an undisclosed sum. This move instantly secured the future of all 185 physical store locations. The new executive team immediately reversed the 2021 branding mandate. The standard GameStop signs were coming down, and the original EB Games branding was officially returning to every single retail location across the country. Tétrault released a public statement to the business press stating, "This isn't just a business decision, it's about bringing something back that Canadians truly loved. We're going to build something special here, with community, nostalgia, and innovation at its heart." Restoring a beloved logo generates massive public goodwill, but nostalgia alone can't pay the rent for 185 physical locations. The core revenue model for this newly independent EB Games relies heavily on Tétrault's specific background in the global toy industry. The fundamental economics of video game retail are permanently altered. Selling a physical $60 video game yields incredibly thin margins, which simply can't cover the high cost of premium Canadian mall real estate anymore. To actually survive, these stores absolutely require a massive injection of high-margin physical goods. This is exactly where the new ownership leverages a massive supply chain advantage. Anyone can put plastic toys on a shelf, but Tétrault's position with Imports Dragon and McFarlane Toys gives the retail chain direct internal access to highly lucrative merchandise pipelines. This eliminates the traditional vendor middleman, and Imports Dragon already handles the complex Canadian distribution for major international brands, moving high-demand products for massive franchises like the DC Multiverse, Harry Potter, the NHL, and My Hero Academia. At the same time, McFarlane Toys manufactures highly detailed premium action figures targeted directly at the adult collector market. Instead of cluttering the store with cheap, generic merchandise just to fill empty space, the company is actively curating high-demand pop culture products. The new business model transforms these retail locations into direct distribution hubs for the collectibles. This targeted merchandising strategy fundamentally shifts the stores from simple software vendors into comprehensive fandom hubs, securing the profit margins necessary to sustain physical retail operations. The new strategy also completely rethinks how customers actually use the physical space inside the store. Under the previous GameStop management, the retail spaces were designed purely to maximize product shelf space. The entire operational goal was to aggressively push customers through the checkout line as quickly as possible to increase transaction volume. The new EB Games management team is actively tearing down that rapid transaction model. They're completely redesigning the physical store layouts to intentionally increase the amount of time a customer spends inside the building. The company announced formal plans to implement enhanced in-store events and construct dedicated gaming lounges in specific high-traffic locations. This initiative is a highly calculated attempt to physically recreate the community aspect that originally defined the EB Games brand back in the early 2000s. Retailers operating in the modern digital economy know they must offer an in-person experience that simply can't be replicated by clicking a button online. It's about creating a destination rather than just a point of sale. If a gamer can walk into a store, sit down to play a physical console demo, interact directly with other local players, and view premium physical collectibles in person, their dwell time increases drastically. The longer a customer stays engaged in that physical environment, the more likely they are to make a supplementary purchase. Utilizing the EB Games name was the ultimate strategic shortcut. Instead of spending millions of dollars in several years trying to build a completely new retail identity, the new ownership simply resurrected a brand that already commanded deep, localized loyalty. Reverting to the classic red and white signs functioned as an immediate corporate apology to the Canadian consumer. It reactivated a massive customer base that felt ignored and alienated by the sterile GameStop standardization. This corporate revival serves as a definitive test case for the future of physical entertainment retail. By removing the unpopular American branding, restoring the localized identity, and securing a robust pipeline of high-margin collectibles, Tetrol resurrected the entire business to serve the local market. The global retail landscape is incredibly unforgiving, and companies that fail to adapt their business models are quickly eliminated. The new EB Games is attempting to survive this digital future by strategically using the power of nostalgia to build a modern, experiential retail network. Now operating as an independent Canadian entity, the company has the opportunity to prove that physical retail in the video game sector remains a viable business model. Looking back though, do you actually remember attending those physical midnight launch events at your local mall? Or have you entirely transitioned to buying your games digitally from your couch? Do you still prefer to physically own your media and display it on a shelf, or is the physical disc completely obsolete to you? Let us know all your thoughts regarding the future of physical retail and physical media in the comments section below. And thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to stay curious.